Hello, I'm Steve Ashton. Perhaps you know me from Ravelry or elsewhere around the web as the Wizard of BC. And welcome to Circular Sock Machine Hints and Tips. This is the introduction to a video series that is the companion to a two-part written tutorial that I did a few years ago. The written tutorial was designed for those who learn best by reading. And while this video series covers much of the same information, it is designed for those who learn best by watching. So what makes this video series different from all of the others out there? Well, most of the CSM instructions out there focus on the big topics, all of the creative projects that you can knit on a CSM, and all of the various knitting techniques used to knit those projects. This video, however, deals with a much smaller niche topic, one that doesn't quite get the attention that the others do. That niche topic is the adjustments to the machine itself. Those adjustments that you can do to help you improve your knitting. I call it fine-tuning a CSM so that it knits successfully and reliably. Even the machine manuals do not spend a lot of time on the machine adjustments. Well, personally, I believe that being able to fine-tune a machine is one of the most important and perhaps the least understood skills to successful CSM knitting. That is why I wrote my two-part tutorial, but some have asked for the information in video format. So please bear with me for a moment while I explain how I will be presenting this information. Now, professional teachers tell us that most people seem to be able to learn best and retain the most if the information is broken down into individual steps and presented like a recipe, one step at a time, one step logically leading into the next step. It also helps people understand if you explain the reasons behind what you're trying to teach. That is how my written tutorial is done, and that is how this video series is structured. The behind-the-scenes stuff will be in the form of little hints and tips that should make it a bit easier. And then, after each step, or perhaps after a couple of related steps, I'll offer a way to test and confirm that the adjustments you just made work. So if you'd care to follow me as I explain how to fine-tune your CSM, I'm just about ready to start. But before I jump into the adjustments, there are 4 things that I feel are best covered right up front. The first of these is the fact that learning to knit on a CSM is learning a new skill. And like learning any new skill will require patience and perseverance. Please be prepared for a huge learning curve. Many new crankers find that it takes about as long to learn to knit on a CSM as it takes to learn to hand knit. Luckily, you're not alone. There are many people willing and able to help. There are CSM events all over the world. We call them crank-ins, where you can see different machines, where you can meet other crankers. There's the internet. Ravelry and Facebook are very active with hundreds, if not thousands, of crankers. Also on the internet, Skype and Zoom, the video conferencing programs, are great ways to have a mentor right there in the room with you. So please, be patient and know that you are not alone. The next thing that is so vital that it needs to be mentioned right up front is if the condition of the machine that you have or are looking at is unknown or uncertain, if you have not seen it knit and rib, if you're unsure if your machine is complete and in working order, please do not just start cranking it or try to knit on it. there is a very real possibility that you can damage a machine further if it's not working well when you get it. If you have a new machine or an antique machine purchased from a reputable dealer, you should be okay. Otherwise, I strongly suggest that you look to one of the CSM restorers to help you repair it and get it back into working order. The next introductory issue that may be overlooked at first is oil. Many people today have never owned a machine that needs to be oiled. So let me go over quickly what oil does and what to look for in an oil. Oil does three things. It lubricates. Lubrication lessens the friction between parts in moving contact with each other. Without oil, your machine will wear out quicker. Oil fights corrosion. It's designed to leave behind a light surface area. This layer provides a barrier against oxidation, rust, if you will. The oil we use cleans the machine. CSMs don't have an oil filter like your car, so new oil is used to loosen any old, dried oil and wash it away along with the lint and the microscopic wear particles. Now these microscopic wear particles, that's what turns the oil dark or gray. So anytime you see the oil turning dark, it's time to take the machine apart, wipe off all the old oil, reassemble, and add new oil. Now I'll be covering how to clean a machine in more detail in a later chapter. Okay, what to look for when choosing an oil. You want a true lubricating oil. Okay, a caution about that. Just because the word oil is in the name does not mean that it is lubricating oil. You also want to choose an oil with a low viscosity that will not dry, thick, and gummy. This low viscosity will seep into all of the nooks and the crannies and then carry the gunk away from your sock. You want an oil that is water clear and non-staining. Oil which will wash right out of your wool. Avoid anything with colors, dyes, or which leaves a strong smell behind. And it's also wise to choose an oil that is non-toxic and food safe. If some oil drops on the floor, it should not hurt your pets. Please avoid anything containing solvents and or detergents that break down oil. We never want to remove all of the oil from our machines. Okay, here are some brand names. Now, I'm not endorsing any of these. These are just the most common. There is Clear Est in a Zoom spout oiler. There is So Right in small plastic bottles like this. You can get them out of the sewing machine shop. And then there is Lily White, which you can get on Amazon and eBay in bulk. This is a quart of Lily White, and I use that to fill a needle oiler so I can apply one drop at a time. All of the brands that I have shown are much the same. They're basically baby oil without the perfume. The final issue that I feel needs to be addressed in this introduction is it's a pesky word that you often hear and you see it in the manuals, but the definition of the word is not very well explained or understood. That pesky word is tension. Now this appears to be a word that was borrowed from hand knitting back in the days when the antique machine manuals were being written. To a hand knitter, tension refers to the drag that the knitter puts on the yarn with their fingers. But to a CSM knitter, any changes in drag cause changes in the gauge of the knitting. Unlike hand knitting or flatbed knitting, a CSM knits best with no drag at all on the yarn. Where changes in drag most often occur are when feeding yarn to the machine from a ball or a cake, where the yarn is wound first over the top and then under the bottom of the ball. Each time the yarn goes underneath the ball jumps. At the speed of hand knitting, this is not much of a problem. But at the speed that a CSM uses yarn, the jumping of the ball causes a change in drag, which causes a change in the gauge of the knitting. When you see the word tension in a CSM manual, what they are actually referring to is an adjustment of the V-cam. This adjustment is not adding or controlling drag. What it's actually doing is changing the size of the stitches, in much the same way that a hand knitter changes the diameter of their knitting needles based on the yarn that they are using. Now I'm going to be covering this issue of adjusting the stitch size based on the yarn that you are using in a later chapter. So when you read or hear the word tension about a CSM, it may be helpful to better understand what is going on if you think stitch size. And there you have it, the introduction to the video series CSM Hints and Tips, fine-tuning your CSM so that it will knit successfully and reliably. As this series continues, I hope that you will find the information useful. And I hope that explaining the reasons behind what I am saying will make the process easy to understand. I leave this introduction with this. A well-tuned machine is a joy to knit on, while trying to knit on a poorly adjusted machine has perhaps led to more frustration than anything else.